Hello and welcome to the American Council on Exercise live class presentation series. My name is Jackie Crockford and I am the Exercise Physiology Content Manager here at ACE. Today we are going to be talking about high intensity interval training, busy days, call for HIIT. I am joined by our presenter, Angel Chelik. Hi.
Hi there.
So Angel is going to be talking with us about incorporating high intensity interval training into a lot of different clients' programs. Is that right?
Yes.
So you work currently with a lot of different corporate clients, which means there's a variety of clientele. So
Yes.
why HIIT for those types of clients?
Sure, yeah. Because the clients that I train are in a corporate setting, they're exercising after or during the workday. They want a pretty high intensity workout. I see them 1 to 2 times a week, so the HIIT format fits perfectly into what we want to do, right? They want things to be fast, they want the energy to be high, interaction to be high, and they want to have a good workout where they feel like they worked every muscle group and got that cardio element as well.
Great. So it's going to be applying this HIIT and different protocols to a lot of different types of clientele.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yep.
So thank you for joining us today. You are watching for free via YouTube. So along the right side of your viewer, you have the chat bar. If you have any questions for Angel during today's presentation, we are going to be taking questions at the end. So feel free and type your question in that chat bar. Also, remember that you are watching for free, so if you would like to receive CECs for today's presentation, there is a purchase link in the description below the viewer. So feel free and purchase the CECs and you will receive a recorded version of today's presentation in your My ACE account. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later as we go through the presentation. So Angel, I'm excited. Let's get started talking about HIIT.
Wonderful.
Here you go.
Thanks, Jackie. All right, so we're going to talk on some major bullet points for some objectives that you're going to learn by the end of today's webinar. We're going to look at the difference between HIIT training and Tabata. So Tabata was kind of what got us started with high intensity intervals, but we've branched out in the industry and more of our workouts later on will be focused around the HIIT protocols. We'll look at the different health effects of performing HIIT on a wide variety of populations. It used to be that the elite athletes would be doing these types of high intensity intervals, but really, as you'll discover, all different populations can benefit from the training of the HIIT intervals. We'll develop a dynamic warm-up, so I'll be bringing in Rudy and he'll be going through a kinetic chain full body workout that will help prepare every major joint in the body for this type of workout. And then finally, we'll get to the bread and butter of the webinar where we look at a wide variety of HIIT protocols with different work to rest ratios. So this is where your creativity gets to come in and you get to dive into a wide variety of exercises, but also formats on how to program those exercises. So let's first look at the traditional Tabata principles. So back in the 90s, a Japanese researcher was working with speed skaters, Olympic speed skaters, and he was determined to find out if working at an anaerobic level instead of aerobic intensity, if challenging those athletes to work at an anaerobic level for a very short amount of time would be beneficial to their training. So in his control group, those people worked for 1,800 minutes over 6 weeks. His Tabata group, they only exercised for 120 minutes over those 6 weeks. And they had statistically significant improvements in their VO2, 28% increase in their VO2 max and their anaerobic power. So this, of course, translated to better performance on the ice. The Tabata protocol was a work-to-rest ratio of 2 to 1. So they were essentially working double the amount of time that they were resting. And in this case, it was 20 seconds of work with 10 seconds of rest. And they repeated that 8 times total. They were on a bike ergometer going as hard as they could for 8 rounds, which equaled only 4 minutes of work. And in those 4 minutes, they saw those huge changes over those 6 weeks. Since the 90s, the fitness industry has evolved and we've modified the Tabata protocol because I don't really think a lot of clients would appreciate getting on a bike and going to max effort over and over again, or doing 8 rounds of push-ups or 8 rounds of jump squats. So we've kind of added some variety into things. And in the HIIT training, the interval ratio varies. It can be a equal work to rest, so you work for 30, you rest for 30. It can be working triple the amount of time with a short recovery, or it can be working super hard that you need longer, like let's say 30 seconds of work pushing a sled, that you need a full 60 seconds to recover. So it varies. The length of the interval also varies. So in Tabata protocol, 20 on, 10 off, that was it. This one can be 30 seconds on, 30 off, 45 on, 15 off. Again, it's up to the trainer and the trainer based on the participant's goals. And the number of cycles also varies. It can start at anywhere from 2.5 minutes, and as you'll see later, can go all the way up to a 6-minute interval. And the big difference is in the HIIT interval, we get aerobic and we get anaerobic. So there might be times when the heart rate has a little bit of a dip, and then we recover slightly, and then we move back into that anaerobic zone. So how do we gauge the intensity for the anaerobic and the aerobic? When we go through our warm-ups, we talk about the RPE scale and get our clients familiar with the verbal cues on how things should feel and how things should look in the body if they're watching themselves in a mirror. But the sweet spot of HIIT is right around that 7 or the 8, the vigorous intensity. It's uncomfortable, you can barely speak a sentence, the breathing rate is visible to you, the instructor. So it's open mouth breathing, and then it's your job to get them up to the highest level with that extra push of your jaws drop. Do you feel the burning in your legs? Do you feel the burning in your lungs, right? Those cues can help push the client up to that max effort that we really want out of the HIIT. So now let's get into the different populations that can benefit from the HIIT type of training. Traditionally, one would think that the endurance athlete would be the least likely candidate to participate in high-intensity intervals. Right? The majority of their training is spent in the LSD, the long, slow distance, where their heart rate is about 50 to 70% of their max. And they did a large volume of training to feel like they can continue in these endurance events. But studies are showing that you can actually remove some of the volume of the training and put in the high intensity intervals and have the same, if not better, benefits. The constant that you will see throughout all the different populations that we'll talk about is that there is an improvement in the efficiency of oxygen in the body. So we're getting a higher VO2 max, a higher cardiac output, stroke volume, preload. All of those things are working more effectively to thus improve the athletic performance of this type of athlete. The endurance athlete used to be fearful of that lactate feeling or that lactate threshold sensation where things are really starting to burn in the legs, because that was almost like, oh, if I go that hard, I'm going to see a decrease in my speed. But actually, through HIIT training, when you get the client comfortable with being uncomfortable and they can sustain that threshold, we actually start to utilize lactate. And the muscle, after it produces the lactate goes back into the liver, where the liver recycles it and puts it out as glucose back into the bloodstream. So we're actually using it as an energy source now, not necessarily a waste product. We see increases in not only the slow twitch fibers, type 1, which are traditionally the endurance muscles, but we also see advancements and improvements in the type 2 fibers. The type 1 fibers are a huge area for mitochondria to build, so that's great. We have a lot of energy being able to be sustained, but the type 2 fibers are about power and speed. So we're getting a perfect blend of improvements in both of those through HIIT. And finally, the increases in the oxidative enzymes that we normally see in the LSD training, we also see in the HIIT. So the utilization of fat versus the glycogen utilization becomes more dominant with the HIIT training. So we're burning more fat as our fuel source. Pretty good. There are some considerations because this type of client might be a little wary in moving forward into this type of protocol. So how will it fit into their current training program? Studies show that you can actually reduce the training to about 3 days a week for the endurance athlete. One day being a interval, high intensity interval, maybe like a track workout or a treadmill workout. The second day being a tempo run, and the third being the longer run. Couple that with 2 days of strength training and cross training. So cycling or swimming to counteract all of the running. And the improvements are quite significant in what these athletes can do. How much time will it take to complete this type of workout? So the intervals can be anywhere between 30 seconds of sprinting, 2 minutes, 6 minutes, 8-minute tempo runs. But know that the overall volume of the training will be significantly lower. And monitor the responses to this type of training. So we're looking for cues, traditional cues for overtraining, having a higher resting heart rate, and not being able to put the same amount of effort into the actual runs. And monitor those and obviously adjust as appropriate. You're the professional, you understand all that, so make sure that you're on top of that with your clients. The HIIT for the strength athlete. Now, traditionally, our strength athletes fear cardio because they think they are going to diminish all of the work that they do in the gym and actually decrease their muscle mass. But studies have shown that cardiovascular exercise in the HIIT forms can increase testosterone and GLUT4 proteins. Yet again, we see, of course, the increase in the VO2 max. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, we're getting more recruitment of both muscle fibers. So the strength gains that are actually happening in the concentric and the eccentric are doubled when you start to do this type of training. And finally, it improves the work economy. So I like to think about the work economy as like the fuel efficiency of your body, like a car. So how many miles or what can you get out of your tank? And if you are incorporating cardio and strength training at a high intensity level, your body's going to be more efficient. You're going to be able to produce more power when needed. Your body's going to stabilize when needed. And you're going to be more efficient at your overall strength training movements. So again, more bang for your buck. The considerations for this are very similar to the endurance athlete. How is it going to fit into their training program? Recently, I wrote an article for ACE about creating high-intensity treadmill intervals. That might be a really nice article for you to visit. We'll talk about that later on to give you ideas about shorter intervals for this type of client. How much time will it take to complete it? And again, monitoring the responses to this type of training for the strength athlete. Next, we're going to look at the older population. We know that the high-intensity exercises act in an anabolic response, right? They promote muscle growth for the body. And what an important population because with age, we tend to decrease our muscle mass. But studies with older men have shown that they have significant responses and increases in testosterone, in growth hormone, and in insulin-like growth factor, similar to their younger counterparts that were in the study. They show increases in strength and lean muscle mass, more so in HIIT than performing low or moderate intensity exercise. So now we're getting a body that looks lean and looks strong, which obviously helps with the aging process. These people are looking younger and more vibrant, and their functional movement patterns are better because of that muscle mass. So not only is the body looking really good, but the brain is also engaged during these high intensity intervals. The miracle grow for the brain, the BDNF, increases with high intensity exercise. So your neurons in your brain can actually grow when you perform this type of movement. So mind and body, yes. You might be aware of a recent study that was published in the Journal of Applied Physiology. They looked at a 100-year-old cyclist from France and he had the world record for most laps in a velodrome. And they were fascinated. This man was 100 years old. We got to study this guy. So they studied him for 2 years, and they asked him to change his training protocol just slightly. He was exercising at moderate intensity for 7 days a week. And they asked him to now switch to every 5th day being a high intensity exercise day. And he gauged his intensity on a 1 to 20 scale, a little different from the scale that we looked at. But he rated himself at a 15 out of 20, so quite intense work. And he did that every 5 days. And after 2 years, they monitored his progress, and he had an increase in his VO2 max by 13%. His power output on his pedal increased by 40%. And this was as he was aging. He was actually getting faster and stronger with age. And at 105, this gentleman broke his previous world record. So what a testament to why our older population should be doing this. Considerations for this group. We want to make sure that they are obviously previously healthy and active with us. We're going to be working with clients for quite a while before we decide, yes, they're ready for this. We will do a warm-up with all of our clients, but particularly with our older adults, extending the warm-up and the cool-down is important. And making sure that you have an understanding about their joints and their bodies. If there's any particular area that needs a little extra love and attention during that warm-up, please take care of that. Monitor the heart rates. So hopefully you're able to use heart rate monitors, and you're able to at least use that RPE scale for them to be communicating with you on how hard they feel like they're working. Because these, remember, should be about 80 to 95% of their max heart rate. You'll start with 1 session a week, but then you can add up to 2 to 3 times a week, obviously on non-consecutive days, making sure that there's ample time for recovery and repair. And know when to terminate the training session. So keeping your eyes on the clients or the members in your class is vitally important. Are we showing signs of fatigue? Then how do we regress that? Are they lightheaded? Are they dizzy? That's a termination. And our final category to look at is the clinical population. Studies have shown that clients with cardiovascular disease see improvements in their VO2 max, anywhere between 10 and 30% improvement in trainings that last anywhere between 8 and 12 weeks. So for somebody that has a weak heart, weak structure of the heart, arterial wall, this can improve the overall functioning of the heart, which can obviously improve not just in exercise for them, but in their daily life. Things like climbing stairs become easier. Clients with metabolic syndrome or type 2 diabetes, in just 6 weeks of a study, they saw significant stabilization in their blood glucose levels and in their fat metabolism. And finally, we know that exercise is a great way to increase the HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol in the body. The considerations for this type of population, make sure that you have done all of your pre-participant screenings to make sure that they really are the appropriate client for this. They're injury-free, and if you have any concerns medically that need to be addressed, feel free to talk to their physician and let them know that you're advancing their workout series. Like the older adults, you'll extend the warm-up and the cool-down. Because the demand of HIIT is so physiologically demanding, make sure that the client understands the need for proper hydration before and after the workouts and how important the role of nutrition is in the ability to perform these types of movements. It's a great opportunity to really elevate their training and to connect to them in their behavior change program to make sure that all of the elements are working together to get them to elevate their game. Monitor and adhere to those target intensities that you established in the screenings. And again, know when to terminate the session. This next slide will talk about different ways to create, or key concepts I'll call it, to create the HIIT intervals. Jump back a slide here. Okay, perfect. So have you developed a foundational movement pattern with this client? You don't want to move right into a jump squat when you haven't established the good mechanics of a squat. And that is if you're doing a strength training protocol. And you'll see that most of the workouts that we do today have an element of both cardio and strength in them. Will it be strength? Will it be cardio? Or will it be a combination of both? Will it be a full body workout? Will it be an upper body only, a lower body only, combination, or will it be a push-pull series? We'll discuss all of these options. So just make sure that it really fits and ties into the rest of the protocols of the week that you're doing with the clients or the class. What equipment will you need? These are often pretty fast-paced workouts, so you don't want to have a lot of equipment where it's cumbersome to move things around. Keep it pretty simple and keep things in a close proximity so they're not wasting a lot of time running around the room to get to a different station. How will they transition between exercises? So try to keep that as fluid as possible. If you have them down on the floor doing an exercise like push-ups, can the next exercise be on the floor as well? Just to minimize that transition time, and especially for adults that are overweight or obese, it might be really hard for them to get up and down constantly during the workout. So just take that into consideration. And then finally, what will you look for during the intervals? So you are the eyes and the ears and everything about that client doing the exercise. So you need to be dialed in to their mechanics. You need to be giving the verbal cues that keep them in the good form, but also those verbal cues that motivate them to push a little bit harder when the fatigue is setting in. I'm going to bring Rudy in for our first warm-up. So you'll see on the slide here, there is what we know as the kinetic chain. And putting the preparation phase into a HIIT training is really important, making sure all the joints are prepared, all the muscle groups are warmed up. So we'll start at the foot and the ankle, and we'll go through exercises that help warm up all of those joints, alternating between mobile and stable. This warm-up would really take probably about 8 to 10 minutes, but obviously for time's sake, we're gonna do things a little bit faster here, okay? So exercise number 1, we're looking at the foot and the ankle. So Rudy's gonna perform a heel scuff. You can see that he's elevating onto the ball of his foot, and he's driving the knee up, and he has a natural, relaxed movement in his upper body. Let's go for one more set there, Rudy. Perfect. Shoulders down and back, getting a little bit of warm up for the calf here, and looking at the mobile ankle. The next joint in the kinetic chain is the knee joint, and we know that that's a stable joint. So Rudy's going to be looking for, I'll be looking for, knee stability as he squats, and then reverse lunge. Then another squat, then another reverse lunge. So you can see shoulders are in a perfect position. The spine is upright and strong. He's got the good hip hinge. So that's the mobile joint that we'll be talking about next. And we're looking at the knees to make sure they're maintaining a nice, stable position. Excellent. So we would do that for about a minute. Rudy, we're gonna move down onto the floor. And next we're looking at hip mobility. So from this quadruped position, he's got 4 points of contact. He's nice and square. The right hip is gonna move into external rotation. So he's moving right from that ball and socket joint, moving the femur around while stabilizing the rest of the body. So you get a little bit more bang for your buck here because your abs are on, right? Mm-hmm. Of course they are. Okay, now go internal for a few. So this would be about 30 seconds on each leg, and then he would move over onto this side, right? External rotation of the other hip, and then internal rotation. The next joint we're looking at is the lumbar spine. So this is a stable joint in the kinetic chain. So Rudy's going to extend his right arm out in front, perfect, and the left leg out behind. So he's got this nice straight long line. I can put my clicker right here at his low back. Let's see how stable that is. And he's gonna go ahead and tap down and then lift right back up. So we are getting a little bit of movement from the shoulder and the hip again, but we're really looking for lumbar stability. Good. Take an inhale on the lower, exhale, lift, squeezing the glute as you lift the leg. Beautiful. 30 seconds on one side, and then 30 seconds onto the other side. Well done. So as we look at the kinetic chain, right, this is the stable, the thoracic spine, the mid-back is our mobile joint. So Rudy's going to go ahead and flip it over onto his glutes. I like this exercise because it kind of kills two birds with one stone. We're getting a lot of thoracic spine mobility, but we're getting some stability through the scapula. So he's got his right hand back behind him, almost like a kickstand. And he's going to push through his heels to lift the hips and reach back into this crab reach position. So he's getting a lot of length through the lats. This scapula is loaded, and then we drop down from the hips and do it again on the other side. Exhale, lift. Inhale, release. Exhale, lift. Good. Following the gaze with the eyes so we can track that arm and add in that extra extension right at the top of the T-spine. Awesome, Rudy. Okay, so we would do that for 1 minute, and then we would finish with one last exercise. We're going to go into a draw sword. Thank you. I'm going to head over that way. So this is working shoulder mobility, and he's bringing the arm into slight internal rotation and then external rotation. Notice that the elbow is staying pretty straight. He's really moving from the glenohumeral joint. Rudy, go ahead and flip around just to show us what that looks like from the back side of the shoulder. Excellent. So about 30 seconds on each side. So that literally takes us through the kinetic chain. Thank you. I like to do a little aerobic / anaerobic finisher right at the end because this is a great time to get the client back into or up into, for the first time, the 7 to the 8 on that RPE right near that anaerobic threshold. Because after 8-10 minutes, he's obviously started to warm up the body, but he's at moderate intensity during that. So this is a great finisher to kind of get them into that high intensity for the first time today. Okay, so for a quick 20 seconds of work, he's going to do 20 seconds on and then do a quick 10-second break, almost like a traditional Tabata, of a double wide out. So he's going to go out for 2, in for 2, out for 2, in for 2. Yep, I've got you on the clock. You go for 20 seconds with a 10-second rest. Good. Intensity starts to build a little bit, and he's looking forward to that recovery in 4, 3, 2, and 1. Excellent. 10 seconds of rest. Your next exercise, high knees. So I want you to run in place, drive your arms, drive those knees high, ready, and go. He would do this for 20 seconds of work. So because that recovery is short, the aerobic demand is higher, so he's starting to feel it a little bit more than the first round. 3, 2, and 1, rest. Good, he gets the 10-second break. And now we'll go to a single wide out. So a little bit faster, athletic position, ready, and go. In and out, single wide outs. At this point now, I'm looking for open mouth breathing. You could go, you could let it go. Open mouth breathing, right? It's getting hard to keep the mouth closed. 3, 2, 1, rest. Good. And in this last one, we'll call it a line run. Imagine like there's a little quad on the ground, and you're gonna run the line forward and back. Ready, and go. This is the finisher. I want you anaerobic, I want you breathless, I want you sucking for air. In the next 10 seconds, go harder, go faster. Awesome, what an athlete here, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, nice job. Excellent, and that's what we want. His first kiss into anaerobic. Is he winded? Is he uncomfortable? Is he breathing heavy? Yes, wonderful. Okay, go ahead off, get a sip of water, and I'll bring you back on in a second. All right, so that is your kinetic chain warm-up. Now let's get into the bread and butter of this webinar. This is my favorite part about being a personal trainer, how you get to be creative and utilize resources like this to help bring your game up as a trainer or as an instructor. So we're looking at Tabata again now, but you're gonna see a little bit of a spin. The traditional protocol was one exercise. but that might be a little boring for your clients and maybe for you. So in this round, we're looking at 4 different exercises. They're still going to be done for 20 seconds with 10 seconds of rest, and they are going to alternate muscle groups, and you'll see that in a moment. Now, in reality, Rudy would be doing this for 4 full cycles, which would take 8 minutes of work. But we're not going to make him do that much today, just obviously for time constraints, okay? So let's take a look at these exercises. Number 1, Rudy, you can come on back in. We're just going to do a brief demonstration of these exercises before Rudy gets put on the clock. So exercise number 1 is a jumping jack reverse fly. So we've got a lot going on in this exercise, right? He's obviously going to get the heart rate up with the cardio element. He's using the back to pull the band. Excellent, good, rest. So that's number 1. Exercise number 2 is a resisted push-up. So he was just pulling, now he's going to push a little bit. He's going to work his way down to the ground, and you can see that he's got his hands like off the handles and actually using a little bit more resistance to the band, and he performs the resisted push-up, right? So this adds into the resistance on the way up. And obviously this could be done on your knees as well. Good. Excellent. Since Rudy's on the ground, exercise number 3 might as well be on the ground if we're going to be smart with our programming. So he's going to lie all the way down into this little hollow body hold position. So we're looking at ab activation big time. The shoulder blades are just slightly lifted off the ground, and the legs can be at a level that is good for the client, right? We're looking to maintain the neutral lumbar spine. A regression would be to just bend those knees and pull them in here, okay? But he's advanced, he could keep it out, okay? So now he goes into chest expansion, gets a little bit more activation through the shoulders, with obviously the tension staying on the abs. So he would do that for 20, and then he's going to stand up, put the band underneath the feet for the final exercise of bicep curls. Shoulders down and back, and he's just going to pump out as many reps as possible. Okay? So let's kind of see what that would look like in real time. Are you ready? Okay, we're going 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. So we're going to go for 2 minutes of work here total. That means he's hitting each exercise once. Okay? Ready? And go. Good. Nice and light on your feet. All these joints are warmed up now from that warm-up. And you've got about 5 more seconds. Good. Nice job keeping your gaze forward. 3, 2, and 1. Now, rest is not really a rest. It's a transition time. So he's getting down onto the ground. We've got 20 seconds of that push-up. Ready and go. Bend and push. Good. And you can always suggest that clients count the amount of reps that they do and see if they can sustain that workload as we go further into the rounds. You've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Remember, you're on the ground for exercise 3. Chest expansion. Hollow body hold, legs down at a good level. Ready and pull it. Good. Try to get the breathing into this, right? Exhale, pull. Inhale, release. You have a high heart rate, obviously, but if we can try to control the breathing, do as much as you can. You've got 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Stand up, and you're going into the bicep curl to finish this last exercise in set number 1. Ready, and go. Good. Burn it out. Go for muscle failure. That is a really good term in our world, right? Failure is not a bad thing. You want to hit that burn. You want that exertion to be really high. Keep going, Rudy. You've got 5. Yeah, he's getting like 1 rep a second here. 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, there's not a break now. He goes right back into jumping jacks. So round 2 coming up. That took us 2 minutes. Ready and go. Excellent. So that's 1 cycle, and he's going into 4 of these cycles for an 8-minute total. Good. You don't need to do any more, do you? Okay, Rudy, head off, get a sip of water, and I'll bring you back in a second. Thank you. So this is just an idea, right? 4 exercises that you can use. Now, obviously, we did biceps in this one, so maybe the next set, they could have a 2 to 3 minute break after they do the 8 minutes of work, And then there's another 4 exercises that you really sit down and think about a smart progression, making sure all major muscle groups are being utilized, and that you are effective in your transitions and the fluidity of things. All right, our next protocol is called the push-pull concept. Little different here because these are 1-minute intervals. There are 4 exercises total. And we're looking at 1 upper body pushing exercise, 1 upper body pulling exercise, then another lower body push, and then a lower body pull. So those are the 4 exercises. They're done for a minute each. Now you can see on the screen here, the rest is after 3 cycles. So this is a 12-minute circuit before Rudy's gonna get a break. All right, come on in, Rudy. 4 exercises here, okay? Climber push-up with jumping jack legs. So our equipment in this series is going to be a Versa cuff or band, whatever you want to use, right at the right at the knee. You're good, right below the knee. Sorry, you're in a perfect spot. Okay, going into the climber push-up now. So Rudy's starting on his forearms, and he's going to climb up into a push-up position. So he places his hands right underneath his shoulders. Give me 1 push-up, and then jumping jack your legs out and in. Good. Now climb back down, climb back up, do a push-up, jumping jack the legs out and in. Nice. And keep going. I'm going to talk to them. Okay, so as Rudy does this, things that we need to think about or options that you can do. You can add in jumping jack legs almost in a pyramid style. So down, down, up, up, push up, 1 jack. Next time, 2 jacks, then 3 jacks. So you can add in more of this if you choose. Cues for you as the trainer, make sure that they're placing their hand where their elbow just was. And you can see he's doing a great job at stabilizing the core during that climber phase, right? We don't want that rocking of the torso. So he's floating down slowly, placing the forearms down, and then driving right back up. Yeah, like, remember this guy? If that went on there, I bet it would stay. I won't make you do that though. Okay, so he would do that for a full minute. Then Rudy's gonna flip over. He has to make a slight adjustment on the band. And just go ahead and swing this way a little bit. Okay, so now we're taking a V-sit position or sometimes boat pose. So the shins are parallel to the sky, and Rudy's gonna maintain this position as he pulls the band back and kicks the legs out. Notice that they're still parallel to the sky. Good. So now here's our upper body pull exercise. He does this for a minute. So notice that first one was really aerobic, right? His heart rate got up because of that jumping jack. And now this one, you get to bring the heart rate down ever so slightly. Excellent. So he would do this for a minute. And then we're transitioning to the pushing of the lower body. Band goes right back near the calves. He takes a high plank position. And now we're working glutes. So he's pushing his glutes up towards the ceiling. That's it. Band is obviously adding into the resistance of that, making sure the abdominals are engaged. So you can see the pelvis is really stable, even though that one glute is really working. Perfect. He does that for 1 minute, and then we finish with the last exercise, the pull of the legs into a lateral band walk. So that again goes right near the calves. He's in an athletic position, and he laterally steps side to side. Good. Feeling it in those abductors and the glutes, obviously, pulling that band apart. That's 1 cycle. He would go right back in after this minute of work. He would go right back into the climber push-ups. So the reason that he can sustain that workload is he just did legs. Then he goes to upper body. So he gets a little bit of break or relief in one area of the body as he works the other. Okay? All right, thanks, Rudy. Go ahead, get some more water, and we'll see you in a sec. Our third protocol is a cardio core format. This one, yet again, has different work to rest ratios. The cool thing about this one is there's only 2 exercises, and you have 1 cardio and 1 core exercise. And you kind of ping pong between the 2 of those. So Rudy will be doing a cardio exercise for a minute, and then he'll do the same core exercise, or he'll do a core exercise for a minute. Then he'll go back and do the same cardio exercise for 45 seconds, and then do 45 seconds of the core. Then he'll finish with 30 seconds of the cardio and 30 of the core. So these 2 exercises in total will be done for 4.5 minutes. That doesn't mean the workout is over. He then does more exercises. But in this set, it would be 4.5 minutes of these 2 exercises, okay? So you're gonna come on in, and we've got a resistance band to use. I'll hold that for you since you don't need it in exercise 1. His first cardio exercise is a long jump with a back pedal, a 2-foot long jump. So he's going to mobilize those shoulders, take a nice powerful jump forward, and then back pedal. So this is a minute long. Obviously a really strong cardio component, explosive component to this. Awesome work, Rudy, keep going. You've got about 15 more seconds for his sake. Excellent. And now I'm gonna be cueing him to go into the core exercise next, which is a hip hinge with this band. 3, 2, 1, good. I give him the equipment. He stands in place, and now we're working flexion of the body. Obviously a little bit of hips supporting that because hips are core, right? And he's folding forward, giving a nice exhale as he leans and pulls the band forward, bringing attention and focus into the abs. Spine is strong. The breathing rate is high. I can hear him breathing from over here. Good. Now, we do a minute of this. There's no break. We go right back into the cardio component, and now you're doing 45 seconds of that 2-foot jump. Excellent, Rudy. Keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. 45 of that, followed by 45 seconds of the band. And then he would do 30 seconds of this and 30 seconds of the core exercise. Excellent. Way to go. Thank you. Thanks. So I just want to emphasize there, those were only 2 exercises, and that took 4.5 minutes. The workout is not over at 4.5 minutes. This is where your creativity comes in. Pick another cardio and another core exercise after about 2 minutes of him resting, then introduce those 2 other exercises. So if you have 45 minutes in a workout, you will get through several components or several different sets of exercises. And our last series is the AMRAP, as many rounds as possible. So this one on screen you could see looks a little different because we have repetitions. So it's not necessarily me watching the clock and having him do it for X amount of time. Rudy's going to be performing anywhere between 10 and 15 repetitions of these exercises. There's 4 exercises, and we're going to perform those exercises in a circuit over and over and over for 6 minutes. So you see that the screen says the rest time is 0 minutes because you don't get any rest during the set. You get it after the 6 minutes is up. So he performs as many rounds as possible of these 4 exercises. Okay, Rudy, come on back in. Now, I would suggest when doing this with a class or clients that you give them enough time to really learn the movement. So I would recommend doing these exercises for about a minute before putting them on the clock for the 6 minute, right? Get them to be familiar with the movement and get a little bit of muscle memory going, okay? So exercise number 1 is a prone kick through. We're gonna come down to the ground for this. So Rudy's on all 4s with a hovering knee position. So he's got a lot of quad work going on right now. He's gonna leave his right arm on the ground and he's going to move the right leg. The bottom leg is gonna kick under. Look at how he kind of pulls back this arm like a bow and arrow. That's perfect. And then he's gonna cycle right back into start position. And then he's gonna kick the left leg towards me and return back to center. Keep going. Good. Notice how his hips are dropping down to the ground. He's finding good mobility through the hip complex. Scapula's loaded. Nice job. He does 10 to 15 of those. Excellent. Rudy, you can lay on your back. I'll give you these dumbbells for exercise number 2. All right, so combination move here. He starts with the dumbbells down, and his feet are about hip distance. Good. 2 things happen at once. He bridges up, thrusts the hips up, and he thrusts the arms up at the same time to a shoulder press. He stabilizes the core and then mobilizes the shoulders into this lat pull, and then pulls everything back down. That's 1 rep. Exhale, push. Inhale. Exhale, pull back, and inhale, lower. Exhale, push. Inhale. Exhale, pull back, and inhale, lower. Good. And he would do that for 10 to 15 repetitions. We'll be standing up for the next exercise. Good. Dumbbell clean. Squat to press. So we got a lot going on here. He's going to clean first and then do a squat to push. Perfect. And then he just releases the arms and pulls them up to the shoulders, adds in that squat, and then has this fluid motion of a squat and push at the end, utilizing the strength of the glutes to help push the dumbbell overhead, right? These are dynamic full body compound movements, right? We're utilizing a lot of muscles at once, so that aerobic burn is happening for sure. So that is the 4 exercises. Let's say that took him 2 minutes, right? You as the coach, you can capitalize on that. And you could say, all right, that took you 2 minutes to get through those 4 exercises. We've got 4 minutes left. Let's go right back to those prone kick-throughs. So he would go right back into it. And me watching the clock, I say, okay, now Rudy, remember we're trying to keep on pace to be 2 minutes for these 4 exercises. Keep the intensity up. Yeah, don't back down from that burn. He does 10 to 15 of those, and then I help him with the transition to keep things moving as quickly as possible. Okay? Awesome. Thanks, Rudy. All right, well, that concludes the different protocols that I created for you today here. I hope that gives you some ideas into the different exercises that you can use, but can also give you insight into how you can tap into your creativity and create things that will keep your clients and your class members engaged and super excited to see you, knowing that every time I come to their class, there's something different. I'm going to bring Jackie back in, and we'll hopefully have some time for some questions.
Great. Thank you so much. Yes. That was so fun to watch. I'm glad I wasn't the one doing the exercises. I'm sitting next to Rudy, and he's definitely in that HIIT, doing some high intensity, and as he comes over to rest every time.
He's over there with his hands on his knees, sucking for air, you guys.
Definitely HIIT is going on here today, so great, thank you. So we do have some time for questions. Please feel free to type your questions into the screen. So you have your chat bar that is next to your screen on the right side. Feel free to type those in there, and we'll be watching those questions come in live. So Rudy obviously is a well-rounded athlete. And works with athletes. He's very fit and can do all of these movements. So we used some bands and some weights. Talk to us a little bit about how to modify what we saw here to those populations. So we have a couple people that are specifically asking about those older clients. After we make sure that they're appropriate for HIIT, how can we modify some of this?
Sure. And I think particularly for group instructors, the cues that you give are going to be the success rate for the client, right? They want to feel confident that they are still performing at their max. It might not be, you might have a 60-year-old next to Rudy in class.
Right.
And Rudy's doing the sumo drop, with a lot of intensity, but they might just be doing something like this. So you being an awesome coach, you have to verbally say that, visually give them those cues on what it looks like to still be able to perform a exercise with a slight modification or regression. But just hopefully making sure that you're making the connections with the clients so that they know that you're watching them and that you have their best interest in mind.
Great.
So, even like I mentioned in the AMRAP section, you have a time to teach the exercise. You're not just throwing them into this. So during that teaching phase is when you can always show some modifications. Maybe it's a progression.
Right.
Or maybe it's, I want everybody starting here, and then once I can see that the form is really good, you can take it to this higher level.
Great, perfect.
I think it really, you have to be aware of your clients and be able to communicate with them.
Right, and just because someone is doing the same movement doesn't mean they're doing it at the same speed.
Absolutely.
Which is a part
Right.
of recognizing that for the different
You
clients.
know, and when I coach on treadmills, I often say, the only thing that I care about is that you're breathless. I don't care about your speed. I want you to look at yourself in the mirror and see
Right.
jaw dropped, gasping for air. And that kind of gives permission for people to go, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
I'm there. I'm
Yeah.
going to give myself an 8+ because I'm breathless. And Jackie's breathless. And we're all breathless, and we all did it at different speeds.
Right. Great, perfect. So we do have some questions coming in. Thank you guys for typing those in. We have a couple of people, it looks like they are maybe group fitness instructors or working with small groups. So thank you for joining us today. How can we, or maybe what's the best type of protocol that we talked about today to use with our groups of clients? There's a lot of different groups that we can have, right? So is one protocol maybe better than another, or can we use all of those just depending on the group?
Yeah, I think, well, for the group fitness element, it really needs to make sense with your schedule. So if you're interested in teaching a format like the cardio and the core, you need to talk to your director and say, you know, okay, if I want to do this, how does it fit in with the rest of the class schedules to make sure that we're not teaching the same intensity level or the same format on back-to-back days at the same time. So I think it's more of a broader programming question than an individual. I have clients, like you mentioned, corporate clients where there's people that are 30 and people that are 60. And they appreciate the diversity in these. And I also teach at a college, and I have 20-year-olds that are doing these.
Right.
So I don't necessarily think that one protocol is better than another for a group. I think it really just is more important to look at the overall training philosophy of the person. Sitting down and looking at what are they doing each day and helping guide them into what classes they should be taking.
Great, perfect. So we have a couple more questions, and let's talk a little bit about a cool down. So we went through the warm-up using the stability and mobility kinetic chain. We choose the protocol that we want for the client or the group that we're working with. How can we cool down, or what's the best way to cool down from HIIT training?
Sure, yeah. I incorporate not only like a little bit of dynamic. We normally use dynamic in our warm-ups, obviously, but just to facilitate some type of slower movement with the body. So instead of just going right down into a hip hinge and just holding, I might take a little wider stance and just find a little bit of flow from side to side before then hinging forward and adding in a rotational cue or something like that. But so some slight movement, then moving into more of the static stretching, and then breathing work at the end. Yeah, so where we can really see the difference in our heart rates, and we bring that attention to them. I mean, they're going to have their heart rate down, but do they know the difference? And can they feel it, and are they working on really slow diaphragmatic breathing at the end?
Great. So just one thing that I kind of want to go back with. We mentioned in the last protocol, there were 4 exercises. So we went through the first 3 and we had the clean with the press. We did, I think maybe just missed the last one, which you already demonstrated. So it was the sumo drop. And I just want to go back and make sure that everybody caught that.
We missed that, you guys.
So Rudy got off on not having to do one of those exercises. He's excited. So there were 4 there, and that sumo drop, if you just want to demonstrate that for
I'm
us.
so sorry I missed that, guys. Yeah, sumo dropped across. So it's just like a slight external rotation in the hip. And like a traditional squat, shoulders are down, spine is somewhat upright, and we go into a drop with a cross. So you alternate the leg that crosses in front every time. And we talked a little bit about modifications and regressions. So you don't have to be touching the ground, right? You can just simply go right below the knee, or you could keep this as like a squat and just tap it out.
Great, yeah. And there's the HIIT, right? Getting the heart rate up, and yes. So Rudy was lucky on that one, but that's a great finisher, that fourth
Yeah.
exercise for that last protocol. So thank you guys. So we do have a little bit of time for questions, but let me just go forward a few slides here to give you guys a little bit more information about if you would like some CECs. So please feel free to type in your other questions, and we'll talk about that, maybe just one more here
Sure.
in just a second. So as you can see on your screen, we have a couple of different options for ways that you can learn more about HIIT, and one of those, as you mentioned, is written by Angel. So we see one of the articles that she wrote, How to Create Effective Treadmill Intervals. So that URL is on the screen, as well as our Certified, which is our monthly publication, and that is all about high intensity interval training, and that is coming out live today. So make sure and get that on our ACE page, and again, that has a lot of information.
Yeah.
Same stuff that we've been talking about here, more studies and research that is supporting using HIIT as a type of training. So a lot of different ways to get that. And once again, you are watching today for free, so thank you for taking the time to be with us. If you would like to receive CECs for today's presentation, there is a purchase link below in the description, and that is acefitness.org, past webinars. You can purchase the recorded version of today's presentation. That will go into your My ACE account along with a quiz. Once you pass that quiz, you'll receive your 0.1 CECs, and those will be loaded directly into your My ACE account. So is there anything else you want to add? Any other tidbits, some kind of final thoughts for our viewers about why they should do HIIT with their clients?
I guess I would say make sure that you practice these on your own before putting them into a class. Because
Yes.
really, I mean, we learn from each other, right? So I take Rudy's class. I like exercises that he does. I think I want to use that too. But does it fit with really the whole program that I want to roll out to a client?
Right.
So, utilizing other people's ideas are great, but just make sure that you practice them yourselves and you understand the transition and the equipment needed. And if you're kind of, floundering through it to try to figure it out, it's probably not going to work for the client either. And you don't want them to be frustrated or feel like they can't be successful at something like this.
Right.
So just make sure you can do it first.
Exactly, because it is difficult. It's meant to be difficult,
Yeah.
right? But they still need to feel challenged
Yeah.
and successful at the same time.
Exactly.
Great.
Yep.
Great. So thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here with us today. We do have another live class coming up next month, and we are going to be talking with Melissa Myers, who is the owner of 1RM Performance here in San Diego. She's going to be talking with us about training youth athletes and some of the same concepts that we've gone through today, a lot of demonstration and using those types of movements for our youth. So a lot of great information that Melissa is going to share with us next month. Please join us then. And if you would like to connect with us, we will be hosting a Facebook chat. So Angel, you're going to take some time after today's presentation. That Facebook chat is live right now, and you can go onto the ACE Fitness Facebook page and type in your question for Angel if we didn't quite get to it today. But again, there are multiple ways to connect with ACE, so we'd love to hear from you and hear your feedback about today's live class. Thank you once again for joining us. Thank you, Angel, for your time. Have a healthy day.